What a great day, everybody. I am so happy that all of you decided to join us today for this session in particular, because we have an amazing human being with us today. Joe Yates, for those of you who don't know Joe, served our country in the Marines, developed himself into a top 1% producer, has owned his own brokerage, then came to eXp Realty to be part of what we're doing here with the community. He's a top leader here, top 1% growth leader in the company. He seems to have a little bit of a pattern of success in his life. And so Joe has agreed to come in and talk to us today about the will to win. It's a concept about our minds and how it's mind over matter, how our mindset is exactly what creates all of our success. And how do we identify what's really necessary in order to keep moving? And Joe, I got to say, I'm really excited about today to hear your thoughts on this. I've heard Joe talk on this topic before, and the whole room had tears in their eyes. So I know he's able to make an impact. Guys, without any further ado, Mr. Joe Yates. What's up, Joe?
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah. No, that was fun. So hopefully I'll stay composed. Actually, I'll never promise staying composed. I'll up front say I don't plan on saying any cuss words, but if I do, they usually come in bunches. So we'll just see what happens. To what you were saying though, it was kind of funny how we were on that call, and this thing just evolved from a call, 8 days ago, and I happen to have a lot of aha moments along the way. So a lot of ahas and some oh shits and some figuring some stuff out. And I really hope that, I actually got a lot out of figuring out a couple of things, and I really hope that you guys do too. I will guarantee you a couple of nuggets on this, and I don't typically say that. One other thing is that there will be one spot in this where I really appreciate everybody having a piece of paper and a pen. It's only going to be for a minute, not a lot of homework, but it's going to make the entire thing more impactful for you. I went through an exercise that made it particularly impactful for me. So I would love it if you participate in that. Please. And to Jeff's point, where I want to go with this is that, there's a couple of things I wanted to do. One is, kind of talk about the mindset piece, and everybody's going through a tough time right now. Not everybody, I shouldn't say that. A number of people are going through a tough time right now. And, I just want you to let you know that, you're not in it alone. It's a moment in time. It's not unique to you. I've been there before. I was, born into an upper middle class family. I went to USC, and no, that's not true. I was born into a poor family. My mom was 14. My dad did some time with Charles Manson. That's no shit. So, just to kind of say that, everybody you're listening to all the time, you don't know their backstory. It's not like everybody just had this rosy thing and they're sitting there going, okay, well, yeah, he's did it. And so, but, he probably had this, perfect childhood and everything else like that. And that's couldn't be further from the truth. And then we've had our highs and lows. And I like to share that because when people are going through those tough moments, it's good to see, again, somebody that's come out of it. So I'm one of the people that, during the heyday, a lot of people are new to the business, but, back in 2006 and that, when I was in subprime lending, I was crushing it. I had top market share. I was cooler than I ever thought I was going to be in my whole life, or, it looked that way. And, coming from rags to, riches at the time, and I lived on the golf course, and I paid for the house my parents lived in. I had a house in Cabo. I had a $100,000 car. And in the blink of an eye, subprime went away. And it was literally, Cinderella and the pumpkin at midnight. I went back to, I was walking to work. I had no car. And I had no houses, including the one that my parents lived in. That was a tough one. Have to go in and say, Mom, I know you like it when I bought this, when I was able to put you in here, but I lost it. And, just trying to struggle through and everything else like that. I got to a point where, me and my son, we ate lunches every day we ran a loan modification company, and we'd spend $1.19 on lunch. We'd go down and get 2 cheese and crackers and a thing of peanuts. There was 30 cents, 30 cents, and 59. $1.19. I knew how much my lunch was every single day. Went to Rite Aid. And, and then to tell you, where that is later on, when I finally had a car, I pulled into a place one day, a convenience store, and I had $2.25. That's important to know. $2.25. So I go in to get my normal lunch at this other convenience store. And when I go up there, instead of $1.19, they said it was $1.29. And I'm like, what are you talking about, $1.29? And how much are your crackers? And they said 35 cents. I said, these should be 30-cent crackers. I'm arguing with the lady at a convenience store over a dime because that meant that I wasn't going to have a paper dollar left in my pocket to get gas. And, one minute you're king of the world, and the next minute you're arguing over, whether something is 10 cents more than it should be. And so for anybody that's gone through those times, again, remember that it's a moment in time. A couple of things that I had happen to me when I was at that low point is I had a buddy one day, we were walking down to get a breakfast burrito, and he said, I talked to evidently about being a little bit depressed about it. And he said, Joe, he goes, you can't give up, because if you give up, we can all give up. Like, well, thanks for that. Thanks for the extra freaking weight. And then the other thing was my son was working with me, and he knew that I didn't come from anything. He saw what we had and he watched me lose it all. But he watched the way I walked into work every single day, first one there, and didn't break, didn't curl up in a ball. And I knew at that moment I had to be able to show how you handled yourself in those situations. And again, it's a moment in time, you're going to come back from it. So for anybody that's out there struggling and stuff like that, I just want you to know that, I've been there. Most everybody else on this call has been there. It's not unique to you. You do get out the backside of that. So I want to get out there real quick on that. That having been said, there's a lot of people on this call that are crushing it too. There's a lot of people having a lot of success. There's a number of people on here that, make over $100,000 a year in revenue share at EXP that everybody can do if they want to. It's free. It's available to you. So there's a lot of success that's being had right now as well. And I think that that's important to know. So, everybody can participate in that. Warning, when you fully understand the opportunity that's available to you, you have a responsibility to go after it. So you're going to find out how to get to that. There's an opportunity there and what's standing in your way. At that point in time, you're just going to go ahead and make the decision of whether or not you're going after it. So we all want more success, and everybody talks in today's, everybody needs a reason for this success. We all want more success. What is the reason that we want more success? And in today's terminology, the reason, of course, is why. Why do we want more success? Most people's why is going to be their family, most people it is their family. Almost every single person is going to say that their why is their family. But if we have such a huge why, something that is so big as our family, why is it that we don't work harder? Why is it that we don't try more? I mean, why is it that we don't just freaking lay it all out there? I mean, I know people on this call and how much their family means to them, just like mine does. Scott Gephardt just cherishes his daughter Paige, cherishes her. I mean, she's the highlight of his world. But there's still something, even still, that he doesn't want to not picking on Scott, but I'm just saying that even with such an amazing why, there's still a disconnect in there somewhere. And one of the things, I'm gonna lose track a few times. I have to refer to my notes on here, so just bear with me, but it's going to be worth it. The disconnect on this why. Simon Sinek came up with the golden circle. Maybe he revolutionized kind of like the marketing idea with the golden circle and the why. So almost everybody has probably read Start With Why, or is at least very familiar with it. In the book Start With Why, Simon Sinek basically explains that people don't buy what you do, they don't buy how you do it, they buy why you do it. And so that's the marketing version of why. And the examples of that he uses one, which is Apple, right? So the people that are Apple people are just flat out, they're Apple. I'm not, I don't have any Apple. I'm Surface Pro, I'm Samsung, I'm anti-Apple, I think, but I'm a rebel. But Simon Sinek did the whole starts with why thing. So Apple, people gravitate to it just because it's Apple. Harley Davidson is something that when you picture Harley Davidson, you're not just thinking about a motorcycle. You're picturing this dude just freaking arms up. Freedom is what it is, right? Harley Davidson is lifestyle. Has nothing to do with fucking motors. Excuse me. There you go. Has nothing to do with motorcycles. Harley Davidson is freedom. Nike, to, like them or not, but I was listening to a Steve Jobs thing talking about Nike, and he noticed how Nike never talks about their product. You never see Nike on a commercial saying how their air sole is better than the Adidas air sole. You don't see them doing anything. It's just do it. They highlight athletes. It's another one of those lifestyle type things where you can put yourself in the place of the person that you're seeing in there, or you can look up to them. It's going to resonate with you, and then you're going to want to be part of it, but there's no product involved in there. And now we've all seen a little bit of a public shit show lately with Bud Light. Bud Light didn't realize that people didn't care what they did. They didn't care how they did it. They cared about why they did it. So, and Bud Light come to find out that a lot of their people were all about America and red, white, and blue, and maybe a little redneck, but whatever it is, that was their demographic. That was their target audience. Those people aligned with them on the why. When they changed their why, they lost their audience. So that's the marketing version of why. The real life version of why and how it connects to us and what we're trying to accomplish. And you always have people, when they're trying to hit your goals, they'll say, well, what's your why? If you have a big enough why, you'll be able to get it. Nietzsche said, he who has a why can bear almost anyhow. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. You see those examples when somebody is lost in the wilderness. Somebody is like in the ocean for 2 days, and they end up coming back, and what was the story? And they said, all I did was think about my wife the whole time, or all I did was think about my little girl. And that was that why that they had to live for that was able to get them through those difficult situations. Viktor Frankl, in the book Man's Search for Meaning, he quotes Nietzsche a lot on the whole why thing. But Viktor Frankl, he talks about, he was in a concentration camp, and the things that kept him alive were two things. One, the men and the women went different directions, and he always had the hope that his wife was still alive. And so he always hoped that he was going to see his wife again, and he dreamt of her at night and everything else like that, and the visions of the future. And two, Viktor Frankl had started on a thing called logotherapy. Logo means meaning. And so he had come up with this, in the book's Man's Search for Meaning, he had come up with this idea on how meaning drives people, and it was his, and he would have never been able to share that with the world and get it out there had he died in the concentration camp. So he had this legacy type why on why he had to make it through the ordeal. I mean, that's something that's just a ridiculous thing to have to go through. They were in there. It was so horrible that they said that when they're in their little barracks, at night, that if somebody was having a nightmare, you don't wake them up, because whatever their nightmare was not as bad as their reality when you woke them up, which is pretty incredible. Anyway, so those are those whys, but their whys are so extreme, right? So if you're out there on the ocean, of course you're not going to give up. I mean, if you got your why, you have to make it. If you're Viktor Frankl, you have to make it. But some of us, we have our why, and we don't have a high enough level of give a shit. We think we do. We don't want to admit it. We don't want to say that we don't care enough about our family or whatever the case is. But in some cases, there's no excuse for the lack of effort that we're putting in. There's something missing. Chuck Fazio at EXP says, you're all too damn comfortable. And I love it because that's really, really what it is. Even in our uncomfortable states, even when the escrows that we have going don't look the way we would necessarily want them to, even though things could be going on in our life, all things considered, we're still a little too damn comfortable. And that's one of the things that's keeping us held down. We're not getting that urgency that we need to have. So what we need to do right now is we're going to figure out, and I'm telling you this is worth it. We're going to figure out what would happen if we hit our goal. We're going to come up with a goal. It's going to be something that's going to be life-changing. I don't want some, I want to make $100,000. Okay, if you make $10,000 a year right now, that's great, but otherwise that's not a big enough goal. And I hope anybody on the call that's not making $100,000 and you hear me say that's not a big enough goal, freaking realize that that's too small of a goal in what we do for a living. Okay? Call that a freaking starting point. Call that freaking, better be next year at the latest. I mean, $100,000 in our business is, that's like minimum wage. So I'm just saying, if you're in the community and you're around the leaders that are in here, $100,000 is minimum freaking wage. So get it, latch onto that. All right. Because we want to get higher than that. I want to think of a big goal. Everybody come up with what that number is. It's going to be. Jeff, I'm going to show a little thing here. Can you share?
You got it.
You got it?
Go for it.
All right, guys. So I went through an exercise in Cabo with Gene Frederick, and he had everybody do this. And he had us write down our freedom goal. And so this number is a number that's going to change things for you. It's not a number that's going to make things mildly better. It's a number that's going to frickin' change things for you. Now, I'm going to be transparent and I'm going to tell you what mine are. And mine, just so you know, just if you want a launching off point, mine was $50,000 a month in just revenue share, because at that point I felt I could step out of production. So again, I didn't pick $100,000. I didn't, I picked, $50,000 a month. To me, that's very realistic and at the same time fairly sexy. So put your number down and make it something that's going to change the life for you and those around you, because you can hit it. I promise you, you're in the right organization to do that. And then once you do that, I want you to answer these questions. And this is an important part, really. Why do you want it? What will it do financially for you? How will things change in your life? Who will it impact? Your family, other people, your church, the lost dog community, whatever it is. I say that a lot because I think I have a heart for it. And how will that make you and them feel? I want to take a little bit, and everybody, please do this portion. Does that stay up there, Jeff, or no?
We're not seeing your screen share just yet. I went ahead and popped those questions into the chat, but try to screen share again if you were trying for that.
I was.
There it is. There it is.
Okay. Well, that might be easier than. By the way, that's the extent of the screen of the slides I was able to accomplish. So that and one other. I need some serious help from you guys. This is another thing. You don't have to be techie to be to do well. And dive in on this if you will. We good? All right. So Jeff, do we just like get rid of that? What do I do? I don't know how to do anything.
It's off.
Gracias, amigo. All right. So those, I hope that was powerful. What I wrote down when the time came, and there's a reason I had you guys, I did it a little bit more itemized, specific to you. And it's because of the way it ended up playing out for me. So when I did that and I wrote down $50,000 a month, I put the reason I wanted $50,000 a month is to be the one that changes the lives of all of our family, and I'm the only one that can. And I said all of our family. I don't know if every time I try to read this, I have a hard time. So that's why I wanted you to frickin' do this, okay? This is still the sheet that I had in Cabo when I wrote it down myself. So I wanted to be the one that changes the lives of all of our family. Knowing I'm the only one that can. And I wanted to be the leader and the example that I can be so that others can achieve their why. So, it's a lot of responsibility there, right? It's like, so I wanted to change the lives of my family. I also wanted to put up enough to where if you're going to coach people want to listen to a coach that, I can help you get to 100 deals. Have you ever did 100 deals? No, I did 16. Well, I'd rather you have done 100. That might make me feel like you could get me to 100. Not saying it can't happen, but you know what I mean? So I like to set the example. I don't like to just be freaking hot air. And that's one of the things. If I hit my goal and I'm making $50,000 a month, what that helps me do is show you guys that you can make $50,000 a month, and that's exciting for me. The 50,000 is of course beneficial to me and my family, but it would also be so much more empowering for the rest of you to know that that was something that's attainable. And again, I'll just say a lot of us are making over 100,000 right now on the call, so that's also a starting point as well. All right, you got that? Everybody has your stuff. Everybody knows how badass would that be if you could hit those things and make those changes in your life. Is there anybody that wants to share? I know I have a volunteer. Tyler Boning. What do you got on yours, man? Muted, buddy.
Oh, there we go. Apparently I can't do anything either. So for mine, freedom goal, 20,000 passive income. And I wrote, my family will be free. And it's funny to what you said, because I wrote down, I am the only one who can. And that responsibility piece is there. And then to what it will financially do for you, right? I wrote down, it'll end everything. As money certainly can't buy you happiness, but can certainly buy you peace of mind. And then the people who would affect, my wife, my kids, and my team, because that kind of passive income just automatically frees up my time, right? And it's time that I don't have enough of to give to everybody else, right? And that's like the numero uno gift that I want to give to everybody and anybody, right? And like to that last piece, like how will that make you and them feel? Is if I have that kind of time and the time I want to commit to everybody in my life, right, I can bring everyone success. And that ties back into that responsibility piece of just like, if I have that, I can help everybody around me day in, day out, constantly 24/7.
That's amazing. I mean, how powerful is that, everybody? I mean, same thing. He just wants to, it's not about just, and I want a Mercedes. It's that everything there was about impact. Everything was about quality of life. And, not to say that there's anything wrong. I mean, I'd love to eventually get a 68 GTO again, but that was all about impact. Did anybody else want to raise their hand and share anything? Gephardt.
I'll do it. I'll feel bad if I don't. I'm not copying Joe, but my number is also 50,000, because because of what I know I'm capable of, honestly. And I know that anything less, I'd feel like I'm not doing anything. It's basically what it is. And I like that number because it really gives me freedom in a lot of different ways. And a few things, let's see here. Gotta go write down your thing, Joe. A couple of my goals have been to have, paid off home I live in that I really like, and paid off home in my hometown and a vacation home. That's just some things and goals I have. It will affect my main thing is kind of like the freedom factor. To me, it's buying my time. It doesn't even matter. Like the homes part is one thing that's cool, but it's really just to be able to buy my time to do what I love to do. And then, affect my family. Like Joe said, my daughter and I do a lot of things. I want to be able to drop what I'm doing and go do something for her, take her on vacation, go whatever, whenever, and really just do what I want at this point in my career. And, how it affects everybody. I definitely am the person in my family that helps out sisters, different, people in my family, and to be able to help set them up better so they can do what they love and not have the stresses and normal things, and really just get to be doing what you really want for a living or for your life, and be able to help affect that. And what was the last one? How do you think it'll make them feel? I think they'll be stoked if I can do that. They're all hard workers. And another thing is like my dad, long story, nobody knows this about me, but my background, he was a timber falling contractor for years for the helicopter operations, and had a crew of 20 people and worked his whole life right next to his guys, even though he didn't have to. And he's still in the industry doing things at this point, and he's 73 just because he can't not work. And I would love to, convince him to maybe not and have some ability to do other things he does, because that's all he does is work. So it's like I can take care of some things that put him on a retirement path instead of still grinding away. But
same thing. It's like another selfless. That's for those of you that don't know everybody on here too. I mean, that's Tyler and Scott. And, there's so many people on here that are just givers, and everything's just about a big heart and what can I do and the impact I want to have and everything else like that. Let's one more real quick. Let's do Mike Holt, and then anybody else wants to, we can bounce back later. There'll be a second step. Can't hear you, buddy.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, man, thanks for being here. You're a rock star. You inspire the crap out of me, dude. So my freedom number is roughly 25,000. And my why, there's a couple of whys. One, my wife has been busting her butt, for her entire life. We both have, but I don't want her to have to work her entire life away. I want to, I have the tools and everything it takes to make sure she doesn't have to do that. That's my biggest why. And then another background that has always motivated me is just to prove people wrong, man. Where I come from, a lot of people just don't make it out, and they don't make it too successful. And I just want to prove everybody wrong. And that's what drives me most of the time. The other things that obviously the intangibles is you get to spend a lot more time with family, and I want to do things with my kids and be able to give them a life that I never had. And it'll impact, that freedom number will impact my entire family now and hopefully future generations to come.
I love it, buddy. I love it. Well, so here's where we're going to go now. So we're done with that. There will be another spot here in a little bit. That was like a bunch of powerful stuff. Those are things that, I know mine personally, and again, with Scott's, Tyler's, Mike's, shouldn't be anything standing in our way when that's the upside of what happens if we hit a very attainable number. And it's like, where's the disconnect? The disconnect is between our why and success. The why alone isn't enough. It's like Ferrari sitting there that's all badass with a giant motor and everything else like that. It's like, why does that Ferrari go fast? Freaking engineering. It's a freaking amazing car. Well, I want to go. Oh, we don't have any gas in it. You know, we don't have any ignition. We don't have a spark. That's really what happens to us. We got all these people that say, I know I can do $50,000, $20,000. We're Ferraris. I mean, we're not like thinking small. We're thinking big stuff. We're thinking good things, but there's no fire, or at least not enough fire. There's not enough fuel. And that's what I've been trying to figure out. It's like the people that succeed seem to typically just want it more. They seem to want it more, or if nothing else, they seem to be working harder for it. There's nothing stopping them. They're attaining it. I watch some of the guys and I get it to a degree. I see what they're doing, but it's always hard work. It's never luck. Very rarely is it luck. These people have just found a different way to do it. So one of the things I've been noticing for about a year, and I've brought it up on a lot of our calls, particularly when we're talking about strictly agent attraction, is the fact that the guys with the egos seem to be having the most success. So if you look at the people that are pretty much our industry has a tendency to have some egos anyways, right? A little bit of cockiness. We all, want to do fairly well. But I'm watching these guys and they have the biggest success, flat out. And I know part of it is because they want to be at the top. They're a lot of the guys who are the biggest guys in rev share also have some of the biggest teams. Now you're like going, oh, they're doing good in rev share because they have a big team. No, they have a big team because they want to kick everybody's ass. And then they do the same thing in revenue share. And they probably do the same thing in everything else in their freaking life. They just make a decision to kick everybody's ass and then they do it. How do they do that? How the hell do they do that? How do they make that connection there? So what I started thinking is maybe their ego is what serves as the fuel between the why and the success. So here we are, we got our why and we have success and we all have a great why, right? We all have a great why and we all have our number. But we don't have the fire. We don't have the spark. We don't have the fuel. And we can't connect the fucking dots. Doesn't matter how many times you say they're important. Doesn't matter how many times you set this goal. Doesn't matter how many times you make a micro commitment. Nothing freaking works. We're all right in the same freaking spot we were. Where those guys, now they're going from 1,000 in their group to 2,000 in their group to 58 million in their group, whatever the hell they're doing. They're selling 9 gazillion houses. And it seems to be effortless. But why? And you sit there and go, well, is it ego, or do they have a bigger why than me? I mean, how can they have their family is no cooler than well, it might be cooler than my family, but they don't love them more. I mean, so what I've started looking at when I'm trying to figure it out and connect the dots and go and see these guys and see the ego in that piece. The ego is an example of something that creates urgency. Now, hear me out, because this is where something might start to click. The ego is an example of something that creates urgency. To become the best and stay there requires action now, action continually, and action greater than your peers. So you can't get too damn comfortable, like we are, when you're competing. Right? So if you want to be number one, you got to go out there and freaking grind. If my goal was to be number one in the market in Medford, I would be stressing taking the time on this call because I got to get the hell off here and go out and start door knocking or something. I mean, I need to go out and get some freaking deals. But you know what? I'm not stressed at all on this call because I had zero desire to be number one in Medford. So maybe that lack of ego or that drive there is throwing water on my spark to where I can be comfortable and complacent, where these guys and other guys in town that want to be number one or top 3 or top 5 or whatever their goal is are freaking grinding. Steve Thomas outworks me every single day. There's probably not a day that I ever work harder than him. He probably could sleep in and work harder than me. He probably at least was thinking about work. I mean, some of these guys just freaking out grind us. And they've got that spark, that ego, that thing. So for a lot of people right now, and I'll end up wanting to know who, you don't care about being number one. I mean, I just said I don't necessarily care about number one. And ego doesn't drive you. So, which is fine if ego doesn't drive you, but you're going to have, if that's not going to serve as that fire, which I can tell you right now, I figured it out. That's what's working for them. The relentless goal to be number one or dominate or be esteemed in the marketplace is what's driving them and fueling them. And then subsequently, they get their why. Subsequently, they bridge that gap, they hit their numbers, and their family vacation is better than my family. So, because they're freaking ego, those jackasses that are so self-absorbed are providing for their families better than we are for that sheer reason. So, who on here, you could type it in there or something like, is not motivated by ego? Anybody willing to?
I don't know if it's ego or not, Joe. I just know that it makes me feel really good when I'm successful. So it's not about like killing and beating everybody. It's just that when I win, I feel good.
Well, no, good. Because I would have, anybody that says that they don't have ego, work for ego, do things for ego, I basically call BS anyway, because we all do. I mean, is anybody ever, was going to go on vacation and decided they might want to get just a bit better shape? It's not because you couldn't find bigger swimwear. It's because you didn't want to be in bigger swimwear. I mean, a reunion, a wedding, anything else like that, we're all vain. I mean, regardless what it is, we all have ego. It's just where our ego is and, what it pertains to. So it's okay for me to sit there and say, which I am not, that I want to be in shape to go to, Cabo. But yet I can't have that same, and what it does is it creates an urgency. So now all of a sudden I'm like going, Cabo is when? Son of a, well, let's see what I can do, right? I have to give this presentation when? Oh crap, I guess I got it. Now, if this presentation was in 2 weeks, this would be blank. I mean, that's what the urgency does. Ego creates urgency for those guys. So if it's not going to be ego, that's fine, but we have to find another reason, another time-sensitive reason to succeed. And again, it's not necessarily ego itself, but it's the urgency and the relentlessness created by it that those guys benefit from. Again, it's the urgency and the relentlessness that those guys benefit from that gets them where they need to be.
Joe, I love this concept. It's interesting because you hear a lot of people say your ego is not your amigo, right? And because sometimes ego gets in the way, but I like
He's got an ego.
What's that?
He's got an ego.
Yeah, of course he does. And so do I, by the way. Like I just posted in the chat, I lose 5 to 15 pounds before every live event. I get all jazzed up before I get on here because I know I'm on stage. I mean, let's be honest, before this career, I was a performer. That's all I've ever done. It's all I know how to do. And so the reality is all of us are. Sometimes we just forget that we have an audience, and we have an audience maybe of 0, and we're performing badly for the audience of 0. The difference is how big is your audience? How committed are you to your performance? And that is driven by ego. I think about it this way. If you see an amazing performer, I saw a number of years ago, Justin Timberlake get on stage. You think that guy has an ego? Hell yeah. And guess what? He crushed it. And I didn't anticipate that. I didn't want to go to a Justin Timberlake concert just in in case anyone was curious. But I got drug along. Holy cow. Amazing, right? But what was it really driven by? He knew what he looked like. He knew what he appeared like, but also the performance was spectacular. Why was the performance spectacular? Because that's what sells tickets. That's what drives his career. That's what achieves his big why. But you're right. When you connect it back to your ego, you make yourself part of the vulnerability of failure. And when you make your identity part of what could actually fail, that is much scarier than maybe I won't get a Lamborghini.
100%. Now, I'm going to tell you that if you can't plug into being king of Turd Mountain and wanting to be the number one real estate agent in Medford, there's still a different way, but that one is foolproof. That one, if you're competing, you're going to automatically get there. You just get drug along by your ego to the finish line, and they throw money at you and the accolades and roses and the whole 9 yards. So those people, but that's where I'd always stop looking at it. I just kind of went, you know what, those guys, that's what's working for them. And I almost wanted, so then I tried to like change my attitude and just go, okay, I want to be fucking number one and I want to crush everybody but it wasn't true. So I didn't really care. So I could only trick myself for, the better part of a day. And I realized, I was lying. So that didn't work. So this part right here is like ego creates urgency, and urgency creates time-sensitive success. That's what we're looking for, really, is we're looking for time-sensitive success. Those guys, they get it every day because, again, to be number one, you have to work really hard today. You have to sustain it all the time. You have to outwork your peers. So it's built in. If they get that, the ego creates urgency and the urgency gives them time-sensitive success, very quick success. For us, if we don't have it, then what are we going to do? So time-sensitive is the key. We need a time-sensitive why. Our why that we talked about, there was no urgency there. There was no urgency. Viktor Frankl having to make it through a concentration camp thing, it was almost like the ego thing. He had to do it every day. He had to work hard every day. He had to do it continually. He had to actually even outlast his peers and in some cases compete to stay alive, So, or being out there, same type of an urgency if you're out there in the water. It's something where it's a nonstop continual drive. Us, it's not anything like that. It's like a freaking vision board. It's like, well, that would be cool. Our why is something that would be cool. When we write it down, we go, and I would do this, 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 and I'm not going to do a fucking thing about it. Sorry, I guess I am going to throw a lot of bombs. I apologize. But we're not. That's the problem. I've been at EXP for 5 years. I should have hit this number last year. It's just, so where's the disconnect? It's time-sensitive why. It's not just why, but why right now. That's what we actually need. It's not just what's my why, but why right now does it have to be done? We have to make our why time sensitive. So when it comes to the why right now, you guys already touched on a couple of things as far as, while my kids are still young, I want to be able to hang out with my kids. While my parents are alive, I want to be able to do something for my parents. My spouse has a dream, or we have a dream of things we would like to do or travel or what have you. And it's going to be better if it's done sooner, or it's going to be possible if it's done sooner. These are the things. So it's just like trying to figure out why right now. Now I'm going to ask you, we're going to do one more pen and paper. So I'm going to learn to do my little share. So is everybody ready? We're going to do my little share screen again. And now this one. What's going to happen if you don't hit your goal? You all wrote it down. You already have your number. What won't happen if you don't hit your goal? What won't change financially? Who won't you be able to help or impact? What will life continue to look like How will missing this make you and them feel? And again, please write it down. We good? All right. Take away my thing, Jeff. How much did that suck? How much did that suck? Is that a gut punch? For me, it was a gut punch. For me, when I had to circle back and do that, it was a gut punch. Again, my why was to be the one that changes the lives of all of our family, and I'm the only one that can. And to be the leader example I can be so that others can achieve their why. By the way, you're going to find out I have some tax stuff out there. What happens if it doesn't happen? Because I'm just transparent. This is what the freaking I wrote. This is what I wrote down. I'll never be able to stop selling and grinding. I will not solve the tax problem. I will not provide for my wife, mom, and family fully. I will be forever stressed. That sucks. That totally sucks. I want to get my mom in a house again before it's too late. Again, thank God when she had me when she was 14, so we're not that far apart. I just hanging in there. But I mean, I am the only one in my family that can do that, just like Tyler said. It's knowing that this is the type of stuff you can do. Your why is powerful, and that's the carrot, but your why not, for many of us, is more powerful, and that's the stick. I hope people get something out of that, because that turns it, hopefully makes it a little bit more time sensitive. We need to figure out what is keeping us from doing everything right now that we can to get there. Because again, in some families, you are the only one. And I know that we're not the only ones on the call. I know there's a number of people that are the only people that can pull this off for your entire family and make a generational change. Really impact the lives of others. So again, it's not necessarily your why that's holding you back. It's your why right now. And that's what we got to work on. Who wants to share, which kind of suck, who wants to share what happens if you don't do it?
I'm open to it.
Do it.
Can you hear me? Cool. So the first of what won't happen if you don't hit your goal. Like I said, our dreams and precious time slip away forever. And all the time in the world that could be spent with family, the hours and hours compounded over time, and that would disappear and never come back. And that question kind of ties to me on, what's the inevitability of the most common thing that we all have in common, and that's we're all going to die. And we don't know when that's going to happen. And so to sacrifice time is the worst thing in the world to me. And then what won't change financially, but the stress will continue to hang its ugly head. And who won't you be able to help or impact? As my wife and daughters, right? We'll never see each other, and we'll never see the world. And what will life continue to look like? The same as now. This stupid damn hamster wheel, and month in, month out. And how will missing it make you and them feel? It's like missing it means I failed myself and would not deserve their forgiveness.
That's pretty powerful, man. That sucks, right?
That sucks ass. Pardon my own French, Jeff. Everyone.
But how much more powerful was that than your why? Your why was exciting. That sucked.
Yeah, that was hellish.
Yeah.
Sucks a lot.
It's a lot more difficult to think about. When you put out your why, we put out this little dream about what'll happen if we win the lottery type thing. That's our little my vision board. And that's all it is. That's just fun. But then when you actually have to do it in the reverse, that's convicting. That's fucking horrible. Hey, Chad, I saw your hand up. You still want to talk?
Yeah. I just wanted to illustrate that, I'm 45, and if I don't do it, I don't have a retirement. I'm likely to be the guy that's, taking the groceries out at 80 years old, or picking up carts, or doing things that I look at people and go, oh my gosh, how do you be that? And if I die now, my family won't survive. I mean, this is a tough subset of questions when you really barrel down on it. Anyway, that was 2 cents.
No, thank you, buddy. Thank you for sharing that.
Hey, Joe, it looks like Casey Lynn has her hand up.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional speaker, so don't mind me if I cry. But
Hey, you're in the right room.
I'm a brand new realtor. I'm actually going to start full time here in the next week, and this is the perfect time to ask what my why is. The why not is really hitting me hard. What won't happen if you don't hit your goal? I will be devastated. It would make me feel like everything that I put my time into didn't have results, and that would break my heart. What won't change financially? I'll still be renting, and while helping other people buy homes, that's one of my biggest goals for myself, to get out of having even a mortgage. I don't want to have to pay that monthly. I am tired of it. Who won't you be able to help or impact? Well, my mother is still paying off her house. She's refinanced it several times. I would not be able to help her get out of that debt, as well as financially support my husband and I. He worked so hard for our family, and I chose to be a realtor so that he wouldn't have to do that anymore. What will life continue to look like? Stressful, like all of you have said. For me as a woman, I would like to have children, and I attribute stress to why I miscarry a lot. And I would like to stop and be able to have the time to grow a family, and less stress will help me there. How will missing it make you and them feel? It just, like I said, I won't be happy. And my biggest goal is just to be happy. So that's what I had to say.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that and being so vulnerable. And again, you're in the right room, because everybody in here wants to help you. I mean, everybody wants to help you have success, and everybody wants you to hit those goals. I mean it. So, yeah. So we've got, if we're not going to be the person that wants to sit there and do this because of the fact that we got to be number one and do the ego and use the ego as our fuel for the relentlessness and the, the constant drive, then it is the time sensitive why. And it's that urgency that we have to come up with. So Simon Sinek had it right when he said it starts with why. It just doesn't end there. That didn't get us to where we're going with what we're trying to do. We need to be able to find that disconnect. And it's that fuel, it's that fire. And that fuel and the fire are going to be filled in, and they're going to be, it's going to be there because of urgency. And that's the way we're going to be able to bridge that gap. We're going to be able to bridge that gap between our why and our success with time sensitive success, that urgency that we have to put in there. So from now on, it's not just what's my why, it's why right now. So this shit has to happen right now. One of my favorite quotes, of course, is Steve Prefontaine, to say to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. We have something right in front of us right now, and I think it's very, very worthy of us giving our absolute best. To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. We all have this gift, and man, I feel like I've been wasting it. So right now, again, I hope that this filled in a gap. I hope this helps somebody get from the why to the success, and you add that little fire right now for the time-sensitive urgency of having to get this done immediately. And for me personally, it's connected some dots that I know are going to work for me. And now it's just determining what I want my legacy to be, and you guys determining what you want your legacy to be. And then that's all I have, other than people want to share.
Joe, I mean, first off, deeply impactful stuff today, and absolutely amazing content. If you're here and you didn't feel a little bit of emotion going through the room here, you weren't conscious, guys. And here's what's interesting to me. The number of times that I've been to seminars, webinars, live trainings, mindset coaching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and people will sell you on the upside. You're absolutely right, Joe, on what is there to gain? What is it that you want? What are you going to chase after? And it's all, I've heard you say this before, it's all carrot, no stick. And I think sometimes it's important to future pace, we can call it, right? That's really what we're doing, is future pacing ourselves into how are you going to feel if it's 5 years from today and nothing in your life has changed. You're working this hard, day in, day out, the grind every single day. Maybe you're working twice as hard and nothing has changed. Now go 10 years out. How do you feel? You haven't achieved your goals. Now go 20 years out and life is just the same, right? You can't allow that to happen to yourself, and more importantly, to the people that you care about. And that's what Joe's getting to here about tapping into your why. And Joe, it hit me hard, man. I wrote down I've got like big page of notes here. Really, really valuable to me. Casey's waving hers around too. Really valuable. And I would love to hear from a couple other people who are kind of exploring this, right? Because there's so many books and courses and trainings on finding your big why. And it tends to be a little bit of like an exploring your belly button session, right? Like it's really just kind of nebulous, and it is a lot of vision boarding, right? Like, well, I want a Ferrari. It's a lot of I want, which feels very conditional and very out there. And I like Joe's question better. Like, you should have your vision board. You should also have your nightmare board.
Well, and the part that gets left out continually is time sensitivity. That's the piece. Even if you sit there and say, what's it going to look like in 5 years if I haven't hit my goal? I don't know. I'll worry about that in 4 years. That's the thing. That's the disconnect. That's what the guys with the ego have built in. They're not going to worry about that because they still want to kick everybody's ass every day for the next 5 years. They're just going to be that much further ahead. They don't need that fire. They don't need that fuel. They don't need that urgency. Those that aren't working under that premise, those are guys that aren't playing that game, need some other way of connecting the dots between their why and success. And it has to be what's going to happen immediately if this doesn't happen. Why? If I don't get it done right now, if I don't get my why done right now, who's that going to affect? Because sometimes us and ourselves, like Gephardt's a, freaking tough dude, he could David Goggins it up if it was just him. He didn't give a shit, but when you all of a sudden it's going to impact other people, then you start going, oh shit, now I got to make this shit happen. There are some time sensitive things that we've got to do. But anyway, yeah, I chimed again. I would love to hear anybody else that wants to share something.
And I see Jonathan Spang has his hand up. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to Joe though here, because I know he's hard on himself and I love that. And he won't stop until he's reached his goal. Andy's number 236 out of 97,000 right now. I don't know what that is as a percentage, but does not suck. All right, Jonathan, what's up, brother?
Morning, everybody. How's it going?
Hey, Mr. Spang.
Sorry, I'm just driving to a listing appointment, so I'll turn my camera off to not distract everybody after this. So the first set of questions, you know, the why, for me would be to retire my wife. I guess start with my goal, 30,000 a month, passive income. That would afford us full financial and time freedom. I'd be able to retire my wife. For me, it was, sorry, try not to choke up. And I've chatted at length with JJ about this a lot, but you know, the impact both now and in the future, not just for myself, but for all the other agents that would be affected, you know, future generations of college tuitions paid for, and you know, their financial freedom. So that's something that weighs heavily on me. And then as far as, you know, how I would feel by not hitting that, I would say exactly how I feel now, knowing that I know what I need to do and I haven't been doing it, and just flat out not living up to my potential. And so that has caused some regret and frankly scares the shit out of me. And yeah, I don't want to look back 5, 10, 15 years from now, you know, knowing that it was all up here and all I had to do was take action and be consistent. And I think about all the people that if I don't do what I know I should be doing and what I'm responsible for, that I'm not just failing myself, but I'm failing them. So that's all I got.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that, man. Man, you guys are gonna make me freaking this. I have to wipe my eyes every time somebody talks, man. So, dude, you're a beast too. I want to, can you imagine if you hit your potential, Spang? What would that look like? Jeez. Serious.
Excuse my language, but fuck yes, I can.
Yeah, all right, Dad.
Sorry,
we gotta get this mother. No, Dad, seriously, we gotta get this mother rolling. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm gonna butt in. Something I think too, and Joe says this really well. I know I always read a lot of Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect, and he always talks about how it doesn't really matter what your why is. It can be ego, it can be whatever it is. If it works and it makes you do what you're supposed to do every day, it's not a bad thing. So there is no bad one. First of all, I know for me, the time sensitive part is a really huge thing that and Joe and I talk about this kind of stuff a lot. I mean, because I feel like I've actually went through a 10-year period where I was absolutely fired up. I mean, we built, and Joe was involved with it, we built a company that was #1 per broker. I was the #1 listing agent. I was motivated by the stats in that thing. I don't know why. I like numbers. It wasn't even about somebody else doing it. It wasn't to get everybody to know me, because most people didn't even know that I was in that spot, because there was other people who had their faces everywhere. It was very different. But I woke up fired up for probably a 10-year span where there was that's all I thought about. There was nothing that could have stopped me. That's how I felt. And so like my why, I don't know what it was really. It was fear probably of not being what I was supposed to be. I grew up in a small little mountain town where you were either a hard worker or you were a cold piece of shit. There were 2 options and you had to be one of them. And so, it was a really competitive, crazy world of work ethic. So we were taught that big time, from, pulling weeds when I was 7 years old to working on ranches all through high school, all these things. So to me, but here's the whole point of this is mine changed. Like that doesn't work for me anymore. Whatever the reasons were for that has changed, because I kind of did. I wrote down a bunch of things that I wanted to do, own my own brokerage, be these things. I did those things. And then we started some other businesses that went crazy, failed pretty miserably after that, but it was amazing. And then it pretty much, now I have to find that why again. And the time sensitive part of it is definitely more of a factor now. And I struggle with it on a daily basis. And Joe knows this, like what I feel like I'm capable of and what I'm doing, there's a huge gap, like a really big gap in there. And so I'm trying to kind of piece together what it is that really fires me up. And Joe mentioned my daughter and I are close. We do everything together. Of course, it's the most important thing in the world, but it's still, for whatever reason, isn't giving me the same fire that I had before. So it's really a struggle sometimes. And sometimes for me, I believe it just comes down to discipline, and I am very good at being disciplined to the point where I'm half hermit nowadays. But it's still, I don't know. Sometimes you just have to discipline your way through it, and I can't kind of put my number on why I'm not as fired as I used to be, but I feel like I'm working towards it. But I think the time-sensitive part of it, and really, visualizing or reminding yourself of those goals on a daily basis, like to keep that fire going, because I'll go through parts of my day where I'm so fired up, I'm ready to go. I'll make any phone call. There's nothing that's stopping me. And at 3 o'clock that afternoon, it's a different guy. And that, I swear, I probably had 10 years of my career where that did not happen to me. Like it just didn't happen. It sounds crazy. It just didn't. Like that was not part of who I was. Now it definitely is. So, and I did a weird thing I used to do in the past. I used to have 2 reminders that would pop up on my phone every day at like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock or something. And it was about that. I was always super fearful of losing that fire or that motivation or whatever pushed me. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know I was fearful of losing it. I always just figured like I'd wake up one day and that would be gone. And that would be like my worst nightmare ever. And I can't say that it's gone, but it's not as strong as it used to be. So, and I used to just look at that, it would remind me a couple times a day because I felt like I was going to forget it. But anyway, just thought I'd share that. It definitely can change over the course of your career. And sometimes, to go back with where Joe's kind of getting with all of this, is it really is a time sensitive thing. And if we're talking about EXP, we're up to what, getting close to 100,000 people. That opportunity changes daily for us if you want to really look at it that way, because there's people coming on daily. It's like this opportunity is going to look very different in 5 years because we're going to be the absorption rate, right? I mean, one of my best clients ever taught me so much about the real estate market and absorption rate and what the reality is, right? If builders pay really close attention to absorption rates and all the numbers, because if they're building, what's the ability left out there for room for doing business, right? That's huge things. But it has to do with what we're doing with EXP. Absolutely. I think there's always going to be a way to be successful in real estate sales. And I don't think it matters what the market's doing. It's all just a matter of what we're doing. But anyways, quit rambling. Give it to somebody else.
Let me say one more. Thank you, Scott. I mean, and yeah, that's good for people to know that it comes in and out and stuff like that. And all of a sudden you got to go, how do I reignite this thing? One of the things I want to touch on that you were saying is the fact that, being, structured and everything else like that, and knowing that you're you're really, scheduled or whatever, regimented. I've written down that a goal without a why doesn't have enough meaning, and a why without urgency doesn't have fire. So I think that's one of the problems with, I love John Cheplack. We all, most of us on this call really like the way he does things and stuff like that. And he talks about micro commitments and stuff like that. Micro commitments, same thing with Darren Hardy and the compound effect. You just do a little bit here, do a little bit here, and it turns into something big. Keep these micro commitments and what have you. I think, again, accountability partners, those are swell. But the reason they don't really freaking do anything is because you let each other off the hook. There's no real accountability. I mean, there is and there isn't. It's the goals for some of us. And what we're trying to figure out here is what hasn't worked. Goals haven't worked. Accountability hasn't worked. Micro commitments, scheduling, time blocking hasn't worked. To me, the only thing I'm finding is I've never created the urgency where it has to be right now. It's not the goal, it's the anti-goal. It's, this is where I want to be, fine. And if you don't, so what does that look like? What if you're totally screwed at the end of the month if you didn't do something, or at the end of the year? If you're not done at the end of the year, how horrible. We always procrastinate. So it's not sexy enough to have a goal or a micro commitment. It's got to have a time sensitive why attached to it, according to me. Mike?
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Scott actually hit on something that I've kind of been experiencing, and something I was going to bring up is my why has never changed. It's since I was 12 and I was homeless and seeing things go on in my life, moving out on my own at 15. My why has always been to have a better life for me and my wife and those around me, and to prove everybody wrong. That motivates me, wrong or right. It motivates me every single day. But over the last year or so, a lot of life changes kind of took the wind out of my sails, and I haven't lost the drive per se, but I feel like I've had clouded vision over the last especially 6 months or so, and so having to refocus, like this was really strong in getting me to kind of refocus and re-energize. Hearing others that are in the same boat is really motivational. And one of the things that really hit me today is everybody knows, and I preach this all the time to everybody. I'm a football coach. My kids, they know if they're sweeping the floor, they're going to be the best damn floor sweeper there is. Right? If they're taking the trash out, they're the best trash taker outer there is. And that's just kind of how we live. But you've got to have a why, and then what happens if I don't do that, right? That's the big thing to me that was eye-opening today. I've never really heard somebody just throw it out there. Like, you got to have a big why, but that why, you always have to know, like, what happens if I don't do this, right? And nothing changes, right? You're going to be stuck in the same rat race day in and day out, and none of us want that. We have endless potential. The company that we work with, for one, and two, the license that we have, it's an endless potential. You can make as little or as much money as you want. You just got to have a big enough why and enough ambition to go do it. And I really appreciate you guys helping me refocus today.
Love it, buddy, man. Thanks for sharing.
Hey, I want to, Joe, I just want to thank you for what you're saying here, Joe. I know this vulnerability is a super big deal for you. And I want to honor you for that, man, because that for me, I believe, and for most of us, that's the first step. Like, it's so easy for all of us to hide, right? We hide. And the more we hide, the more we hide. And so I like to say that we have this ripple effect. And think about it in this idea that, there's a story I just wrote about today, this idea of the window effect, and it's in criminology, that if there's a window in a building broken and you don't fix it, it's more likely other ones will get broken until there's no windows left, and then other crime starts happening around that area. Giuliani actually made this work in New York. But the reality is we have ripple effects, positive and negative. So that idea that if we start doing things positive, we will have ripple effects in other areas of our lives. So the idea is, if we get into getting up at 5 o'clock and we make ourselves doing that, all of a sudden it's easier to get to the gym. If we get to the gym, it's easier to actually eat properly because we're doing the work. It's easier to have a better attitude. So one of the things that I would encourage people to do and to think about in this show is that we have so many things in our lives that we keep thinking about, or we're actually feeling guilty because we haven't done them. And I would question you of, do you need to let them go? Like, if you're not going to do them, why do you keep letting them bust you? And maybe it really isn't that important. But the other question would be is, what accountability do you have to set up? And so, Joe, I would encourage sometimes accountability, say it doesn't work. Well, because there's no teeth in it. But the question I would ask, Joe, is if you have actions that you have to do every day, and you've set because you probably have 1 or 2 or 3 things that you need to do every day, right? Is there 1 or 2 or 3 things that you've committed to doing? I know there's some things you've told me. But what if you set up a penalty if you didn't do it? So we talked about sometimes the carrot works, But for me, oftentimes I've had to put a penalty that would be pretty painful because, for example, your texting thing, Joe, there's nothing that can keep you from doing that, right? I mean, it's not physical. You could be in bed and do that, right? Yeah. But the question is, for some reason, you still haven't done it every day, right? I mean, you've done it really awesome. But the point is, but what if you had to pay a $5,000 penalty if you didn't do it? Would you freaking get it done? Now that's accountability. That's superhuman accountability because the price is big enough that you're unwilling to not do it. And I watch people on this call that have done 75 hard. And that's really amazing. You know, Joanne, I think you did it. You know, Jonathan's done it. My question is, why aren't we doing that in our businesses, in our lives? Because that is partially business, but the question is, where in business do we need to get some coaching to think about around our head? You know, like what reading do we need to do? What things are in there? And I just think what you're saying, Joe, just hits it because when we really start thinking about the why, you know, guys, I'm at the other side now at 60, right? And Joe's saying is like, we've got things we want to accomplish and time is precious. And we're all so much more capable than we think we are. If you look at the things that you've all overcome, when I look at what Joe's overcome, when I look at what Scott's overcome, everybody has those. We have so much ability. But what are the 2 or 3 things that we need to really discipline ourselves on? And Joe, that was kind of the question I meant to ask is, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 practical things that somebody can do to start applying moving forward day to day?
To me personally, like I get what you said. I know you've had success with that, and the penalizing yourself through the accountability process.
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying it's a different idea.
I'm just saying there's some validity to it. What I'm trying to figure out is how to change ourselves internally. Like when people will sit there and say, you know, if somebody told me I have a positive attitude, I'd say, no, I don't. I'm a positive person. Attitudes come and go. You know, I wake up freaking good every day. I'm just a positive person. So we all have these things internally, and it wasn't always there. I mean, trust me. I mean, I was like totally, insecure, felt terrible about myself, self-conscious, everything else like that, when I was younger. So, you can change some things over time. Positivity changes over time, things like that. But I think it's the things that we can find a way to actually manifest it, or not manifest, but to transform. And we need to make it a transformation. If it's external of us, then it's ever changing, or we can't always do that. If I just want to compete with everybody on this call, and if my goal is to beat John, and John gets out of the business, then all of a sudden my goal is gone. It's just like, well, now what do I do? I already beat Tyler. No, kidding. No, I'm just saying. But it's just like, you can't have something external like that. To me, I want to have a fundamental change internally that changes the way I look at things. And I don't want to live in necessarily a place of fear. But I oftentimes, when somebody says, when somebody's being negative and they go, well, I'm just a realist, I'm like, nah, you're just kind of like an ass. It's just like, you're negative. Yeah. But to this, there's something about having that built in, where if I looked at things and instead of saying, well, that would be cool, and then at the same time was able to go, man, if I don't do that, it's going to be so effed up. I don't know. I think it needs to be that an internal change, an internal way of looking at things that I'm trying to, like I said, I'm on a self-discovery thing over the course of the last week. I went in, what if it doesn't happen? And then trying to figure out why it happens for certain people, and then trying to find out what the disconnect is. And I'm on a self-discovery process. I'm like 2 days ahead of where I present of this presentation myself. So, but to me, it feels like that's where the gap is, and that's how to bridge it. But I want to change Joe Yates if I can.
Is it changing your standards of what your expectations are of yourself? Is that part of it?
100%.
How you visualize yourself, or how you see yourself being a type of person?
Well, see, I think everybody's on a different journey, right? There are people on this call that when I said, if you don't make $100,000, that's minimum wage. And they're like, they don't see themselves right now as $100,000 people. So that's a different conversation. To that person, I want those people to plug into us so we can explain to them why they are and build them into that person, because everybody on this call should make $100,000 a year. So anybody that thinks they can't, please connect. Okay. Now you've got those of us that have said things like what Jonathan Spang said, and what I know I'm capable, and what Gephardt said because of what he's capable of. Some of us know that the sky is the freaking limit, and the sky's the limit for everybody. It's just some of you just don't know yet. I didn't know a long time ago, but now I know what's expected of Joe Yates. I know what's expected of Joe Yates from the world. I know what's expected of Joe Yates from me. I know what Prefontaine would say about what I'm doing with my gift. So there is I have an internal expectation of myself, but for whatever reason, I don't make myself live up to it on a continual basis, or I think I'm going to live forever. So things that I thought I would have been doing by now, I am not doing. And so, yeah, I have to stop letting myself off the hook. I'm not at a position right now. I guess I'm very, 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 very fortunate, like Spang said, and like Gephardt, where I think a lot should be expected of me. And again, a lot should be expected of all of you. It's that transformation when you realize as you hit each milestone, financially, spiritually, socially, whatever it is, and all of a sudden you go and you realize where you're at now. I'm not fulfilling any portion of what Joe Yates is. And I would challenge everybody to sit there and look at themselves and say, what portion of am I filling of my potential?
It's all what's our next step, right? What's our next step of when we've achieved one thing, what's the next step, and how do we keep moving forward and not beat ourselves up too much at sometimes, but when we've accomplished things, to keep what's that journey continue looking like,
And that's the other thing. There's no
powerful.
It's the good to great thing, right? The enemy of great is good. So if there's you owe no apologies for being good. You owe no apologies for providing for your family and saying, hey, I don't, Yates, that was all kind of cool, but pound sand. Sounds like you're gonna drive yourself crazy. There's hey, everybody do your own thing. I'm just saying, for those that want to maximize their potential, maximize the opportunity. I said early on, when you fully understand the opportunity, you fully accept the responsibility. If for anybody that doesn't know, once you know that there's guys sitting around here making $100,000 a year in revenue share, while they're also selling, a lot of homes or doing a lot of other important things, and they're doing it as their side hustle, that's something that is available to every single person on here. I might want to plug into that if I'm not plugged into that. You start looking at what your why is and your why not, and you realize that there's the potential to knock some of that off of there. You could take care of some of those things by improving your revenue share, or and obviously we'll help with production as well. But once you know what's available out there, you kind of have the responsibility to go after it. Rod Flick says there's a fine line between ignorance and stupid. Ignorance is not knowing something exists. Stupid is knowing it and then not going after it. So, I'm not going to call anybody on stupid on here, but there's people on here making a lot of money doing this. So you are no longer ignorant to the fact. So do with that what you will.
Got it.
Mr. Spang.
Hey, so random. Of course, I'm driving at pretty high speeds. I just got passed by a gray Jeep that had a Marines sticker on the back. So thanks for that, Joe. You're here with me. So I kind of lost my train of thought. I apologize a bit, but I wanted to piggyback off of something that Sellers had said. I'm currently listening to several books, but one of them is the 5-second rule. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. It's Mel Robbins. But one of the chapters, she talks about, oh my God, I totally just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, guys. Procrastination. Sorry. She talks about two different kind of procrastinations, but most of us, myself probably being the poster child of that. She says, essentially, research has shown that procrastination isn't laziness, it's caused by stress. And so when you're stressed, when you procrastinate, it gives you that temporary relief. But obviously that compounds in a negative way. And so essentially she states that you need to forgive yourself first and foremost, and then just start taking action. And that really resonated with me. Like I said, I would argue that all of us know exactly what we need to be doing every single day, pretty much every hour of our day. And, you know, a lot of us, myself, again, poster child, make excuses on why it doesn't happen, right? And that stress compounds. So give yourself, you know, forgive yourself, give your permission to let go of that guilt and that shame, and then take action.
I love it, man.
Jonathan, I love that. And Mel Robbins is incredible. If anyone hasn't read her stuff, she's super smart, wicked, great author. And I just found the quote because I love looking for this stuff in real time. If I can slap it in the chat, but the quote that Jonathan was talking about there, and I love your memory, dude. Procrastination is not a form of laziness at all. It's a coping mechanism for stress. Confidence, on the other hand, is a skill you build through action. Mel Robbins. It's pretty awesome. How do we get into action, Joe? What's next, man?
What's next? I mean, I think that we got to stare at that you know, that freaking what happens if I don't do it? I mean, it's, if you can't get motivated by what's going to happen or what's not going to happen for your family, yourself, your friends, whatever it is, by what it is, and you have to make an urgency to it. It's like, what's the timeline? It's not just some future thing. I don't want to see any more goals. I want to see your anti-goals. I want to be, you know, there needs to be, unfortunately, this doesn't have to be, because for some people, it's just about kicking ass, taking names, and being number one. But for many of us, it's not enough. And so we have to flip the script, and we have to do it the other way. And we have to find the way to create that fire right now with time-sensitive urgency and a time-sensitive why. And I think that everybody has to come up with a new why. And what happens if I don't do it right now? Why not now? It's, I have to do it right this minute. What's the time frame for me to be able to get this done? No more vision board type crap. I mean, I love it, but it doesn't get anywhere. You know, everybody acts like they'll do anything. Joanne Graham sitting there laughing along, but it's like, you know, I know people will sit there, and I was literally thinking of Joanne and Ricky this morning, because, you know, Ricky adores his wife. And I'm thinking, you know, Ricky would take a bullet for Joanne, but he probably wouldn't cold call for her. You know, I mean, it's like, that's what we do. It's just like going, I would do anything for you. You know, well, let's get this rev share up. Why don't you start calling somebody? I don't want to do that. You know, it's just like going, what kind of little emotional stumbling blocks do we put in our own way? What kind of barriers do we put up? If this is my why are we not hitting it? It's stupid shit like that. It's like, okay, well then we're all going to die, and we're never going to have this. And this is what's never going to happen for me in my entire life. Now, what are you going to do about it? Put my shoes on and get my ass to work, you know? So we just have to really focus on who we can take care of right now and what's going to happen if we don't.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That is absolutely incredible. And guys, I hope all of us are going to take this information, this knowledge, this feeling, hopefully that you have, because I sure do after this session today, and be able to use this in our life and our business to move ourselves forward. John, I saw that you unmuted. Do you want to send us out? What do you got, man?
Oh, I really didn't mean to, but hey guys, I just encourage you all. What Joe said there at the very end that I really picked up was, you better get prepared to be uncomfortable. I mean, that's what I heard. Like, you know, with Joanne, the example, hey, if you really want to hit your goals and you're really saying your words, you're probably going to be uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is not bad, right, Joe? Because we're learning and growing and realizing that's a growth mindset, that we're going to be a little uncomfortable. And man, just take what Joe said today, put it into your heart of what came there, what he shared, what he dug into, and realize internalize it, get uncomfortable, take action.
I love it. Yeah, this is incredible stuff. Joe, thank you as always for being an incredible leader, for being such a great part of the community. Thank you everyone for being here today. And if you don't know enough about what we're doing here inside the community, what this is, what it is that we're accomplishing, we are a growth, support, training, coaching, courses, environment for agents inside eXp Realty. And if somebody invited you here today, you're a guest, talk to them. Learn about what we're doing. We've got a webinar you can watch. We've got all sorts of stuff so you can learn why so many top agents around the world are making this move to join us right now and checking out what we're doing. Everything that you want is on the other side of fear, Scott Gephardt said. And I love that. And I agree with you, John and Joe. You got to get uncomfortable because comfortable is called staying the same. Everyone on this call would say, I want a better life. That means you want a different life. And different life means it can't stay the same. That means you got to get what? Uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is how we change. I love it. Thank you guys again for being here. This is such an honor to spend my time with you guys. Can't wait until the next one. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.